The leaked US-Iran draft agreement may signal the biggest geopolitical de-escalation in years. Markets are already reacting like the crisis is over. Oil stability, shipping normalization, risk of easing. But here's the problem. They may be misreading what this document actually is, because this is not a peace deal, and it's definitely not a resolution. It's something far more fragile, a pause inside an unfinished conflict. So what was leaked? The draft MOU, reportedly circulated by the US at the G7 conference happening in France, outlines a possible framework between Washington and Tehran. If implemented, it would include a ceasefire, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the return of Iranian oil exports, access to frozen Iranian assets, and the start of broader negotiations over sanctions and Iran's nuclear program. Now, on the surface, that sounds like de-escalation, and in a narrow sense, it is. But the structure of the deal tells a very different story. Now, let's explore the key structural detail, because the most important feature of this draft is not what it resolves, it's what it postpones. The hardest issues are not settled here. They are pushed into the future, into a 60-day negotiation window, and that includes Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, verification mechanisms, the scale and timing of sanctions relief, the structure of a proposed $300 billion economic framework, and even access to frozen assets. Now, none of that is actually locked in. It's simply deferred. And why does this matter? Because this is critical. Because markets tend to price headlines, not structures. And structurally, this is not a final settlement. It's a framework for continued bargaining under reduced military pressure. That distinction matters, because ceasefires like this are not endpoints, they are transitions. So why would both sides agree to something so incomplete? Because both sides are under immense pressure, but for different reasons. For the US, even partial disruption in the Strait of Hormuz threatens global oil flows, LNG shipments, insurance costs, and supply chains. And we are now approaching the inflection point where oil stocks around the world are going to go even lower and going to see a much higher increase in prices and rising inflation. For Iran, the conflict has created economic strain, but also strategic leverage. Iran has demonstrated it can influence one of the most important checkpoints in global energy. So both sides have now something they want to signal: victory without escalation. Now let's get the real political logic. This is why the draft does not look like surrender. It looks like mutual off-ramping. The US can claim it forced Iran back into negotiations. Iran can claim it resisted military pressure and extracted concessions. That dual narrative is exactly what makes agreements like this politically viable. So what is still unresolved? This is the core issue. Iran's nuclear threshold remains unresolved. Verification remains unresolved. Sanctions relief remains undefined. Asset releases are conditional, not immediate. Even the economic package is not operational, it's just conceptual. So the central contradictions in the US-Iran relationship, it's still fully intact. And now let's explore the wild card, the Israel factor. This is the major complication. It's outside this agreement entirely. The draft references de-escalation across all fronts, including Lebanon, but regional dynamics are not neatly aligned with a US-Iran diplomacy. Actors like Hezbollah, Syria, and Israel operate on separate strategic logics, which means even if Washington and Tehran reduce direct confrontation, regional volatility may continue. Now the market's biggest focus, the Straits of Hormuz. If this agreement progresses, flow should gradually recover. But gradual is the key word. This is not an on-off switch. Mine clearances, insurance recalibration, naval coordination, and commercial routing all take a lot of time. So even in the best case scenario, Normalization is going to be measured in weeks, if not months, and definitely not days. So what is this agreement really about? It's not a peace treaty. It's not a final settlement. It's a managed pause, a controlled reduction in risk while both sides reset bargaining positions. And that distinction is everything, because the underlying drivers of conflict have not been removed. They have only been temporarily contained. If signed, this would be the most significant US-Iran de-escalation in years. It would reduce immediate energy market risk. It would likely reopen key shipping routes, and it would create space for diplomacy. But it does not answer the fundamental question, whether this pause becomes a lasting settlement or just another chapter in a longer cycle of escalation and containment. And that outcome will not be decided by the signing ceremony on the 19th of June. It will be decided over the next 60 days. If you like this, hit the subscribe button. Thank you.